And that's not the only news coming from Iran. On the eve of newly elected President Hassan Rouhani's visit to the United States, Iranian authorities unexpectedly freed 11 of the country's most prominent political prisoners from jail. The list of freed people includes journalists, authors, activists, and attorneys, most notably Nasrin Sotoudeh, a human rights lawyer who represented several activists who protested against the Iranian government. Also out this week, in an interview with NBC News, President Rouhani pledged to tear down barriers that prevented Iranians from surfing the internet freely. He said he believes that all people should have the right to access the free flow of information and have a platform for dialogue. So, a lot of changes, but is this change that we can believe in? I was joined earlier by Jamal Abdi. He's the policy director at the National Iranian American Council, and I asked him what we should make of all of these changes.
These are all extremely positive signs. This could all be leading to a historic meeting between President Obama and President Rouhani at the UN General Assembly next week. Rouhani, since taking office 6 weeks ago, he said a lot of positive things. A lot of people in Washington were saying, well, that's all well and good, but we don't know if he's actually going to be able to deliver. Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, said he's smiling while he's building a bomb. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And yet what we found is that Rouhani, over the past 6 weeks, has managed to convert these positive words into positive actions. He's demonstrating that he can deliver. He has a little bit of space right now. He's not going to have an infinite amount of time to do so because there are hardliners in Iran who don't want any sort of rapprochement with the U.S. But there is time right now. The question is Obama going to be able to do the same thing and hold off hardliners here in Washington from sabotaging potential talks?
So can you give us some examples of some of those physical things that he's actually changed and not the things that he's necessarily just talked about? Well,
one of the main campaign promises that he made was in regard to the human rights situation, the securitized environment inside of Iran. And yesterday we saw this sort of landmark announcement that Nasrin Sotoudeh was released from prison along with 10 other political prisoners. This is a case that was raised by human rights organizations, by President Obama himself. She was a major face of the crackdown against human rights defenders, democracy defenders in Iran in 2009. She's now released. Rouhani made good on this promise. He also said he was going to try to get the leaders of the Green Movement released as well, and their file has now been transferred to the National Security Council, which can now make the decision to actually release them. Very promising signs. On the nuclear issue, nothing is going to come outside of negotiations, but already Iran is converting some of its higher enriched uranium to fuel purposes that virtually can't be used for a nuclear weapon. And they've taken other steps to signal willingness to put further caps on the nuclear program.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Jamal. Actually, we have a clip from President Rouhani speaking with NBC News about this nuclear program.
Mr. President, these are Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's words, not mine. He has said about you, his strategy is to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, smile and build a bomb. Can you say now categorically then that Iran will not build a nuclear weapon under any circumstances whatsoever?
Firstly, an occupier and a usurper government that does injustice to the people of the region and has brought instability to the region with its warmongering policies shouldn't allow itself to give speeches about a democratically and freely elected government. We have clearly stated that we are not in pursuit of nuclear weapons and will not be.
So, Jamal, do we have reason to trust him, and what can we do to trust him in the future?
Well, I think that, this is a positive sign. We can't, nobody should operate on the assumption that one side can trust the other side. This is about verifiable agreements. But I think that there is reason for hope with Rouhani because, for one, he actually has the backing of the Supreme Leader. This is a pretty stunning development. The Supreme Leader has said, look, we need to be more flexible at the negotiating table. Iran needs to be prepared for compromise. He's laying the groundwork for compromise. The Supreme Leader has also, he allowed Rouhani to basically take over authority of the nuclear negotiations, something that previously was overseen by the Supreme Leader and bodies like the IRGC. Now it's in the President's domain. And Rouhani has been instrumental in pushing for compromises on the nuclear program and has said pursuing a nuclear weapon is not in the strategic interest of Iran. And I think that's something that he clearly believes.
And we just have about a minute left, but obviously the UN is coming up next week. How are American politicians responding? Are they willing to listen?
Well, President Obama deserves a lot of credit, actually. He initiated a series of letter exchanges with Rouhani. Rouhani said that these were positive exchanges. He was happy to see these letters, and it looks like there was some positive communication between the two sides. Now, Congress is a different story. There are some in Congress who want there to be a diplomatic off-ramp. They saw how the Syria debate played out and saw that Americans don't want war in the Middle East. On the other hand, you have folks like Senator Lindsey Graham, who is saying he actually is going to meet all this positivity by Iran with a resolution to authorize war against Iran to basically threaten the country because he says they've been emboldened somehow. So I don't think that Lindsey Graham and other folks are necessarily updating their talking points. They're sort of acting as if Iran hasn't changed, when the reality is there are all these positive signals, and hopefully the White House is going to be able to take advantage of them.
Hopefully the White House and also the Iranian people. Jamal Abdi, Policy Director at the National Iranian American Council, thank you so much for joining me and weighing in.
My pleasure.